Welcome back to another episode of Adam's Trucker Tales. I got a special one for you today. This is a military-related story. I met a gentleman a few months back, and he told me that he had this weird encounter in the desert during Desert Storm, I believe 2. One of the biggest things I tend to get a lot with the military guys is they don't have as many scary stories as you would think when it comes to like paranormal or extra normal or any of that kind of stuff. Usually their scary stories are, war-related horrors of war. This guy, I think he saw what I believe would be described as like a jinn or a desert spirit, but he could also have just been on the brink of death. So here's the story. I want to call him Sergeant Bluebird because apparently he told me this hilarious story. He got nicknamed Blue, then Bluebird, because he was doing an airborne mission one time, and as he was parachuting down, I guess they were practicing. As he was practicing, he got pelted in the face by a blue jay, and it cut him up real bad on the side of the face and everything, but he got the nickname Sergeant Blue after that because, why wouldn't you, right? There was still blue feathers all over his uniform. Like, he got hit hard. So he eventually goes overseas, and he's got a group of about 18 guys that he's deployed with in this little area. He couldn't tell me a lot, or he just didn't want to tell me a lot. He goes out there with these guys, and while there's like a village, we'll say, and there's some light combat, some light resistance. Their objective is to push this particular group of people out of this town, and they fight for about 18 hours to push these people out of this town. And at some point, this really, really bad sandstorm kicks up, and normally they would get a warning about something like that, but for some reason they didn't get a warning, and then the comms started acting bad. The radios weren't properly working. He said visibility was damn near zero. Visibility was at 2 to 5 feet. So they hunker down into whatever building they can get into, just kind of wait it out a little bit to see if it calms down, because they've already accomplished their objective. While they're hunkering down and all these, it was so bad that like there were some guys in this building, some guys in that building, some guys in this building. It was like they weren't picky. They just kind of went inside or wherever. Well, Sergeant Blue ends up going into this like small hut where there's like he said, bags of like hay and goat feed and stuff, and he's just chilling in this little hut with this goat and a couple baby goats, and he just sits there. And at some point, when the storm finally starts to let off a little bit, he finally reaches back out on the radio to see if he can hear anybody. Now the storm's still going, but not as bad, and he can't hear anybody. The one thing he told me about this storm was it was insanely loud. The goats wouldn't shut up. It was insanely loud. And he's already from what he told me, he's already hard of hearing. He just kind of got away with, no one ever really caught on to it, but he was already having issues with his the left side of his head. So basically what happens is he didn't realize that during the sandstorm, the people that they had kicked out of the village came back. And they came back with reinforcements. So while he was in this little goat shack, just trying to wait out the storm, like 13 of his team members got back on the helicopters and left. The other ones were either missing or were like unfortunately killed in action, and he just didn't hear it. He just didn't hear it, which is, to me, means either they snuck back in during the storm and were silently killing these guys, or his hearing and between the storm and the hearing and the goats, it was that bad that he just didn't hear the gunfire. But he, digs the sand out of the entrance of this little shanty thing that he's in, and he looks around, he's checking out. He's got his rifle. He's calling the radio like, guys, where are you? And nothing. But he does see what looks like the people that they had pushed out of the town walking around the town. They're on the rooftops. They're walking back and forth between the buildings. He's like, yo, what happened? What happened? So he's freaking out on his radio, like, guys, did you leave me here? But they're so far away at this point, and the storm is still going. He's not getting anything back. So he's like, what the hell do I do? I'm literally surrounded by these guys, and I'm by myself. I don't have a lot of ammo because I already went through an 18-hour firefight. Beans. What do I do? So he starts devising a plan of like, okay, I gotta sneak out of here. I cannot engage these guys. I have to sneak out of here. So he decides it would be in his best. I don't know if they're even allowed to do this or not, but this is what he told me. He decided to abandon a lot of his gear so he'd be faster, lighter, and a smaller target. And he takes off his helmet. He takes off most of his heavy-duty stuff, his heavy-duty, like, long sleeves and everything. He's like, I need to be as nimble, fast, quick, and small as possible to get out of this village where no one will see me. Right as he takes off the last bit of gear, so at this point, he's basically down to, like, 2 layers of a long sleeve. He's got his pants on, he's got his boots on, no helmet, no gloves, no heavy-duty jacket. He's leaving his backpack. All he's got is his canteen of water, his rifle, and his sidearm. And, like, that's it. Maybe a couple extra magazines at best. And he decides, all right, I'm going to make a go for it. Right as he goes to make a run for it, when he sees a clearing, the damn goats come running out of the shack and draw attention to where he is. And they start walking towards where he is. And he's like, I'm dead. They got me. I'm going to have to shoot these 2 or 3 guys coming my way, and I am never sneaking out of here after that. So they get really close. The goats wander off. Luckily, the goats wander off and start to run in a certain direction, and they focus on 2 of the 3 guys run towards the goats to catch the goats. One of the guys keeps walking towards the shed, and Sergeant Blue waits till he gets close enough, waits till he gets inside the shed, hiding in like a dark corner. He quickly, before he gets there, he quickly puts all his stuff, his bag, his jacket, his helmet, and all that in the corner that's furthest away from him. So when the guy walks in, he immediately sees the American military gear in the corner and walks towards it. And Sergeant Blue comes up behind him, takes him out with a combat knife, and quietly sneaks out of the shed and goes around the back of a house, hops a mid-level stone fence, and he starts his long, he said it took him about 3 hours of timing and praying and just, using the sandstorm the best he could to his advantage to get out of there. The problem is he wasn't really sure which way he was going, and he wasn't really sure where to go at this point. He picked the direction. He remembered the helicopters coming in, but that was like miles. The base that he was stationed at was miles away, like a long ways away. It's a helicopter ride. He finally gets out. The sandstorm finally quits, and he feels like he's far enough out now that he's at least safe from them. Well, the problem is what he didn't know was the guys that were there before they showed up placed improvised explosives all over the damn place. And if any of you guys watch war footage or know anything about the conflicts that we had in the Middle East, a lot of the improvised explosives that were used were very, very unreliable, and they were also very finicky. Like, the detonator wouldn't work probably half the time, but if you kicked the thing too hard, it would go off. So they were basically kind of like landmines without being landmines. Well, at one point, he trips and falls over like a small sand dune, and he rolls down on the sand dune, and he kind of like lands on his knees at the bottom, and he hears something crunch, and he's like, what was that? That wasn't my bones. It wasn't my knee. What was that? So he starts digging sand away from around his knee gently, and he starts seeing wires, and he's like kind of like moving the sand away from the wire, and he's like, oh my god, I literally landed on an IED. And he's moving sand from this side and this side, and it looks like there was, he said it looked like a bunch of cans of something, and what looked to be a refitted mortar shell, and it was directly under his knee. This completely paralyzes him with fear, but he doesn't know if he should try to get up either. So he grabs his radio again, desperately trying to reach out to anyone, like, hey guys, I'm stuck out here in the desert. Like, you need to come get me. I think I've landed on an IED. I don't know what to do, how to defuse it. Where do I go? He's freaking out, calling out to like whatever, but the base, like, hey guys, I'm still here. Well, that doesn't work. So he ends up in a point where he doesn't know what to do, so he just stays there, hoping that they'll come back and he'll be able to somehow alert them to his presence. He doesn't know what to do. Like, this is one of the situations where, like, I mean, what kind of training can you possibly get to prepare you for a situation like this? Now, the problem is he's still out in the desert. It is hot as hell. He's got like a half of a canteen of water, and he's stuck in this weird, like, knelt position with his left knee on this thing, whatever it is, and his right leg, kind of like in like a L position. And he's like, I can't stay like this forever. Well, he ends up staying like that for what he claimed to be approximately, in his mind, like 40 hours in that position, until he eventually gets to a point where he passes out and falls off of it. From between the heat stroke and the exhaustion, he's been awake for over 3 days at that point. He just can't take it anymore. He falls off of it. He's like, he gets to a point where he's like, it's either going to go off and kill me, and I'll be dead before I hear the explosion, or it's a dud and I'll just keep it pushing. But he was terrified. I mean, he was just terrified. He really hoped that his boys would come back and see him and help him. Well, that didn't work out. So when he finally snaps out of it, it's nighttime. Now at night, it gets really cold in the desert sometimes. So he wakes up and he's freezing. So he gets up, starts walking. He's in so much pain. He's in so much pain once he gets back up. And what we come to find out later, that when he finally does get picked up, is that roll down the hill actually broke some stuff. He didn't realize it. He damaged the bones in his knee, and he damaged a couple bones in his back. And usually, I guess, maybe if he had his rucksack on, it would have cushioned it a little bit, but he didn't have any of that on. So he just rolled down this sand dune, not realizing that he busted up his back, and when he landed, he busted up his knee. So he's in agony, walking through the desert, walking where he believes he's supposed to be going. At this point, he's out of water, and he walks for what he claimed he felt was like another day. The only thing he said that kept him alive was he found some questionable water at like the base of this big rock formation. There's this muddy, gross brown water, but he lapped it up, and he said he immediately started to feel nauseous, but it kept him going. So while he's wandering the desert at this point, he's dehydrated, he's on the verge of collapse, he's in agony from his back and his knee, and he's walking through sand, which really doesn't help. He eventually gets to a point where he thinks he sees what looks to be like an oasis. And what threw him off was he's like, he knows he's probably hallucinating, but at this point he's like, on the off chance that it is actually water, I'll risk it. Because what he was doing at this particular time was he was traveling, but he was trying to stay in the shade of a mountain, like a big rock formation mountain kind of thing. So he was trying to stay in the shade as best he could. And this oasis that he thought he saw was out in the distance. He'd have to go out into the sun a considerable distance to get to this mirage, or what he hoped wasn't a mirage. So he gets going, and eventually, believe it or not, it is actually an oasis. It is actually a. He said it was probably like a maybe 20 by 10 pond of water, very shallow water. Like he said, you can put if you put your finger in it, it only went up to like here. But he was like, "Oh my God!" So he clears out some of the weirdness in the water, and he's about to put his mouth into the water, and he feels something grab his foot and drag him back, and he gets hit in the head and blacks out. When he finally comes to, the sun's starting to rise, and he said breathing hurt. Like he was so dehydrated and so thirsty that like he could feel his skin cracking on his scalp. He was bald like I was. He could feel the skin cracking on his scalp. His lips were just completely split. You know, he said he got to a point where he didn't even feel like he was sweating anymore. He was so dehydrated. And he opens his eyes, and they're all blurry because, you know, one, got hit in the head, and two, when you're really dehydrated, your eyes kind of get all murky. And he sees this guy in a red and black style garb like they wear in the Middle East. I don't know exactly what the term was, but it was more old school Arabic style, not like modern day. Like it was old school Arabic, like, you know, Aladdin and the 40 Thieves kind of looking Arabic stuff. And he can't even see the guy's face. And all he can do is just water, you know, begging this guy for mercy, basically, like, water, please. And in perfect English, this guy tells him, "You want water?" And he's like, "Yes." And Sergeant Blue kind of gets up on his knees, and he's reaching for the guy, and the guy like slaps his hand out of the way. And he said something along the line of like, "May Allah curse me if I be a bad host." And dude pulls out his junk and starts peeing on him, basically. So Sergeant Blue at this point, he's too tired to even fight back. He's literally just like, he dropped his rifle a while back. You know, his sidearm is so covered in sand and dirt, he doesn't even know if it's going to work. All he's really got left that he can quickly access, that he knows is reliable right now, is his combat knife. And he goes to reach for it, and the guy wrestles it out of his hand. Again, there's really not much he could do. So Sergeant Blue just falls back over, and he says he thought he was crying, but no tears came. And this person laughed and said something along the line of, "If we ever meet again, maybe our fortunes will be different." And he just kind of left him there to die, basically. And he blacks out again. Now at this point, he's been out there for like a solid 5 days, 5.5 days. He doesn't even know how he's alive at this point. He's finally able to crawl his way back over to the oasis, a little bit more lucid, I guess. And he realizes that it's just mud. Like, so he starts digging a hole in the mud with his hands, trying to get as deep as he can just to get even a handful of water. And he does. He gets like 2 small handfuls of water. And he's looking around, and he realizes, okay, there's a lot of dead palm fronds and shrubbage and like the stuff around. He's like, okay, one of the few cases where being a smoker might have actually saved someone's life. He's able to gather up all the strength he's got left and start a fire at this oasis. And he's like, maybe they'll see the smoke. And that's it. So he is able to get on his 2 feet just enough to make a pile of dead foliage near a couple of live foliage so that it would actually create smoke. For those of you who don't know, if you throw green stuff in a fire, it smokes more. So he grabs everything he can, lights it on fire with his cigarette lighter, and he creates a decent sized fire. And at some point, while he just sat there watching the fire, he passes back out again, And this time he's like, I'm dead. So he kind of makes peace with himself, life, God, whatever. But he wakes up, and he wakes up on a helicopter. Turns out they were coming back for him. They were coming back to try to kick these guys out of this village again and also reclaim their dead and look for those who might have been missing to see if they were taken as POWs. And they saw his fire on the way there and figured, let's just check it out. There shouldn't be anything over there. And they saw the burning oasis. By oasis, I mean, I'm talking like maybe 5 or 6 trees with some shrubs around it. Like it's like this beautiful, like green area. It was just literally a mud puddle. And they found him. They got him out. They ran him back. He said that they said they don't even know how he survived. They were like, this guy should have, you should have died of dehydration yesterday. And they treated him because apparently, the water made him sick, and he lived. Surprisingly, he lived. But what was really interesting is years later, after he's already left the military, he falls in love with a woman who grew up in that part of the world. And in fact, she grew up in that village. And he told her the story. And she's like, I would love to take you back to my village to meet my people. They're actually a lot more accepting of Americans than you would think. And he was like, I guess, I don't really ever want to go back there, but if it's for your family and, whatever, sure. Well, he goes back there. Now, when he goes back there, mind you, it's been like 20 years at this point. When he goes back there, the village is a lot bigger. Like it went from, 50, 60 buildings to now it was a proper, like actual large town. And while he's walking around this town with his wife, and they're like in this like market area, like a bazaar, I guess they'd call it. And he sees this homeless guy wearing tore up clothes, but he's blind. He's just like, this guy looks like he's hard up. I got some, I don't know what their currency is exactly, but he's like, I got some money. He goes and walks over to give him money. And the guy starts to, he puts the money in like this little bowl. And the guy says, Allah bless you. And he's like, damn, you sound familiar. Like really familiar. Hauntingly familiar. And he looks at him and he just says something along the line of like, well, may Allah curse me if I'm a bad host. And there was this awkward silence. And this, even though the guy's eyes were completely gone, as far like they were just white out, like cataract out, he had this flash of recognition in his face when he heard his voice. He started crying, and he just kind of shook his head and put his head down. And Sergeant Blue just walked off, and he realized like that was the guy in the desert that peed on me when I was dying. He left it alone though. And what was really strange is while he was visiting his wife's family, he was on the roof of their little 2-story apartment, I would say. It was like a 2-story building, but it was like perfectly rectangular. He was on the roof, that he was smoking a cigarette, and he's talking to his wife's dad, and what little bit of his dad spoke a little bit of English, and he spoke a little bit of Arabic, so they were able to effectively communicate. And her dad says something about like along the line of like the spirits of the desert will actively like repay injustice, and this guy very tells him a tall tale about like what the desert spirits are actually looking for, how they seek justice and reparation, and if you're pure of heart, the desert will acknowledge it, whatever. But anyway, so while he stays up there, the dad goes back downstairs to eat dinner. He's about to come downstairs. He's just going to finish a cigarette, and he said that he thought he saw the same guy, blind guy. He was being led by a little kid, like 8-10 years old, and he recognized the torn up clothes, and he's walking with a cane, and they're walking down, out into the desert, and like right because their house was like right on the edge of town, and the guy turns and like pats the kid on the head. The kid gives him a hug and goes back into town, and the old guy just walks out into the desert, and he says, I swear to God, he got about 20-30 feet out into the desert, and the wind stopped, the bugs stopped, the sounds of the town stopped. It went dead quiet, and I swear he turned, looked at me, and I swear it looked like something reached up out of the fucking ground, grabbed him, and pulled him under the sand. He just disappeared. Like, he thought that maybe the guy just tripped and fell, but then even the clothes disappeared. Like, he was standing, and he just, like, in the blink of an eye. He's like, if I would have blinked, I would have missed it. And yeah, he didn't know what to think of it. He didn't really want to tell anyone about it as far as his family while he was there. So he just kept it to himself and only shared that story with a couple people. He said I was like the third person in his life he ever told, because he thought they think I'm crazy, but I told them the type of stories I pick up on the road. And he's like, well, if I am crazy, I'll fit in with your little crew. And I was like, yeah, me and my co-drivers, we like the crazy. But yeah, I don't know what you guys want to make of that one. He went back to the States, and he I guess decided after his kids were grown, he decided to become a trucker and see the country. He's like, I've been all over the damn Middle East. I'd like to actually explore my own country a little bit. So he went back after his kids were grown. I guess his wife was cool with it, so he hopped on a truck. He didn't need to. He had a pension and everything. He didn't need the money, he said, but he really enjoyed going out for a couple weeks and going home for a couple weeks. And he's basically a casual trucker, not as an offensive term, but like a literal casual trucker. Like, he doesn't need the money. So, but yeah, tell me what you guys think. Do you think it was the desert spirits, invoking justice, but waiting for the right time for him to realize his disrespect? I mean, I don't know a lot about the Middle Eastern culture. I know a lot about the Muslim religion because I studied it at length, read a lot of their books, a lot of their stuff, but I don't really know a lot about like the cryptid culture of the Middle East very much, other than like, jinn and werewolves and, some of the things you hear about through like, Reddit and stuff. But yeah, tell me what you guys think of that. I think it's kind of a poetic story, to be honest with you. Like, I really, really liked it. Like, I was like, I like the poetic justice of it. Looks like Allah did curse him for his inhospitality because he invoked it. May Allah curse me if I'm an inhospitable host. And he peed on the guy who's dying. I think if Allah is real, or any level of deity were real, if you invoke that and then do something directly disrespectful, I feel like you're gonna get cursed. But dude, you're gonna piss off whatever deity that is. And sure enough, 20 years later, he finds the guy. He's homeless, blind, being led around and taken care of by a little kid. And like, dude looked like he had a hard life. Like, he did not look like some old man with some kids who just, no, he looked like this dude's been sucking shit through a straw for 20 years when he saw him. And I was like, damn. But poetic justice. Anyway, I appreciate y'all watching. I'm happy to finally be able to tell you guys a fresh story. We've been uploading a lot of my older stuff, cleaned up audio with like, B-roll footage in the back for you to watch. We kind of stepped away from the AI stuff. A lot of people don't like it. I get it. I don't really see the difference. It's just something to look at while you listen to the story, but a lot of people don't like it, so we stepped away from it. A lot of people seem to like the B-roll footage. Please give me feedback on that if you wouldn't mind. And yeah, pleasure to talk with my fellow co-drivers out here. All of you, whether you drive or not, whether it's a bicycle or a car or a truck, we're all co-drivers out here, right? And yeah, if you're listening to this while you drive, I hope you have a safe drive. And if you're watching this while you drive, I hope you get the hiccups. Catch you guys later.